Alright guys, what's going on everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bob's Garage, and in this episode we're going to go over what exactly happened with my transmission line. Okay, so if you guys haven't been following along, previous episode I had to get my car towed because my car was puking transmission fluid everywhere while driving. Yeah. I don't know yet the extent of the damage to the car in terms of driving the car with little to no transmission fluid. Once I get it back on the road, that's when we're going to see how it performs or drives once I get it filled back up with trans fluid. So, previous episode, I was talking about it and showing it a little bit, but I had the entire front end of the car on the car, so it was harder to see. Okay. There's two transmission lines. Here is the lower transmission line, and here is the upper transmission line. Both of these bolt into the back of the radiator, and this is on Tiptronic cars only, in case you're wondering. There is where the top bolts in. There is where the bottom bolts in, actually specifically there. Now, what happened was, you can see this whole front end is covered in coolant and shit from me draining it. What happened was, while driving, this lower line blew off or disconnected from the radiator. Completely lost the bolt that holds that into place. This is what the bolt looks like that holds the or held the top one in. So once that lower line blew off, I basically lost all my trans fluid on the road. Rush hour, trying to get off the road, and yeah, I kind of limped it over to the side. So here's my dilemma. Do I try to get this back into the radiator, the stock radiator, how it's supposed to be, or do I do something a little bit different and bypass the radiator in replacement with this guy? What is this? This is a B&M supercooler. It's a transmission cooler. I don't remember off the top of my head. Oh, I guess it says here 70268. And the thought is, let me see if I can do this with one hand, is if I were to replace this with, or use this, would be to mount it right in here next to the, well, it's not showing up, next to the stock fan. Right now, this radiator does not have the condenser in place. There's the fan. So that's the actual radiator right there. So what they send you is a package of stuff with the transmission cooler. Bracketry, zip ties, all kinds of stuff. And you can fabricate whatever you need. So what I was thinking was, like I said, hanging it right off of this bar here, and just like that. These are where the lines would connect in, here and here. The question is, or the issue I'm having, is trying to figure out the best way to go about doing that, and or if that's a good idea to begin with. My thought as to why this happened, why this line blew out, was one of the holes on the back of the radiator was stripped a while back. I'm sure I talked about it in one of my episodes. Maybe it was when I went stage 2 with the car. I don't remember. Maybe one of you guys knows. So most likely that's what happened. When I did all the work to the car just now, recently, whatever, I did not tighten it down well enough. Okay, what is this over here? Looks like something might be leaking. I can't even tell. Okay, so I have two options. Well, more than two, but so this upper line, upper meaning that it connects to the radiator above the other one, which I'm referring to as the lower one. This upper line runs up through the backside of the radiator. This vertical section here is in the middle of the radiator. So it comes down here and it actually bolts. There's a retainer bolt that holds it in place right here, and the line comes up, or I should say over, up, and across, and bolts into the hole here. So it goes like this, down, and back over. Why does it do that? It does that because there is a, here's the line here. It does that because there's another smaller trans cooler behind this intercooler. So, do I keep the stock OEM intercooler that's back behind here, in addition to the B&M? Do I only use the B&M, or do I try to get this tapped and fixed, and or not only that, but then still install the B&M? Now, from my understanding, I believe most Stage 3 cars that are tip have an external transmission cooler like this. The thing is, what I didn't realize is, believe a lot of the companies that were building these were adding these into the loop. So it was going through the stock one over here, going through the radiator one that's internal, and then also going through this guy. Basically, that's how an external transmission cooler is done on any sort of like towing vehicle, a truck, or anything like that. They don't, bypass anything. They add that for additional cooling. So, I think I can get to one of the lines. So, this line here, this lower line, it threads into a hard line back behind this loop here. Threads into a hard line that is essentially just behind the radiator, and that line goes directly to the transmission. So if I unbolt this, and it's only like about a foot long section here to here, so that's a foot long section. Where am I going with this? That's not a problem. So I can bring up my flexible line that would run to the transcooler right out here off to the side, loop it back in front of the whole front clip. Yay. The question is, what do I do to tap into this upper line? I guess I may or might have a few options. I could potentially run it. Oh man, I'm not exactly sure. So back in here this is the back of the driver's intercooler, is where the line screws in for that essentially runs all the way across the car. I need to figure out where to connect that line. So do I run a flex line right out of here, or like what I could do is I could cut this hard line, put the hose right over it, and then use a hose clamp. Not really clean, not what I'm looking for. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to kind of think about this and check this out. In the meantime, I am going to come over here and inspect this hole. I don't see anything obvious. Well, yeah, there's some chewed up threads in there. This one looks pretty good. So my options are to... Man, that hole looks fucked. So, I guess my question is, guys, do you think I can get away as a Stage 2 car, Stage 2 Plus, get away with bypassing the radiator and just running through this guy? So my options are to tap this hole bigger, get an entirely different, bigger / custom bolt, and then try, pray, hope that works. Not sure what to do here. Because in the event that I do go with an external, I'd like to be able to, maybe go back to stock, whatever. Like, I don't like doing permanent modifications. And also, if say I cut this and put my hose right on there, there's no barbs or anything like that to keep the hose from blowing off. I don't know what kind of pressures the transmission system's under, but I mean, I'm looking at these like fittings here, and they're pretty stout. They're pretty beefy, so I'm guessing it's got to be done right. It'd be nice if I could put a line right on here. I don't know. Let me think about this. Okay guys, we are back and working on this car. I'd removed this short hose here. This is the lower transmission line that goes into the radiator. And I was going to try to find a fitting so I could install the external transmission cooler in the same spot where this fitting bolts in. The problem I'm having is on the inside of the stock line, it's flanged so that it'll fit in there without leaking. You can kind of see that shiny section there, that's the flange, and it helps it go into that end back in here much better. The kit that I bought from B&M has a fitting that should or might or could work. I don't even know where I put it, but it doesn't have that flange. So I went to the hardware store, I'm buying all kinds of fittings and shit, and then I'm like, man, what am I freaking doing here? None of this is really going to bolt up and be nice. I'm either going to have to get custom flanges made, which someone else had done, or come up with a different solution. So, kind of not feeling that right now. I need to get this car done today. Can't be fucking around. So, I had bought, it came as a set, but I bought 2 replacement bolts. These are the bolts that go here and here, that hold the 2 lines in. You know, you put the line in, put the bolt in, boom, done, right? Look at this. This was the bolt that came off of, that I removed from the top line. See, it's longer and has a washer, right? So that bolt, the longer one, was up here. Pretty sure now that I'm thinking about it, that this was the one that was stripped, which meant that I had tapped it and installed a longer bolt to grab more threads. So I think what happened on reassembly from when I just did all that work is I forgot that, and I put the longer bolt in the top and the shorter bolt in the bottom, and that's most likely why it blew out. So not many threads to grab. So where I'm at is I got my tap set out. This is a M6 by 1.0 tap that I'm using in here, and I'm just kind of turning it in. Don't want to be doing this, but I can't come up with an easier, slicker solution for an external trans cooler. I was going to try to go this route. I went and grabbed my RS4 oil cooler, and I was like, man, this would be perfect for a transmission cooler. It has fittings on there. It's like a little baby radiator, and came with a set of hoses and everything, but this is just not going to work. Look at that. It's huge, and these fittings I can already tell are going to be way too big to bolt right on. So this might be something that I'm going to have to come up with at a different time. I really like this idea or concept. I don't think anyone's ever done this before, but I don't have time to fabricate this. I'd probably have to cut all these brackets off, weld them back on backwards, because the oil comes out on the driver's side for the transmission on a tip car comes out on the passenger side. So that's all we're doing. M6 by 1.0 tap. And I'm going to do both holes just to kind of clean them up. And I don't remember if I had 2 longer bolts or 1 longer bolt. But might be worth a trip to the hardware store to get a second one, just so they're both the same and this doesn't happen again. So that's it. Stay tuned for more. Alright guys, I know this isn't very much of an in-depth video. Sorry about that. I needed to get this done. Don't have much time. Today's a Saturday and I gotta work all day Sunday and stuff, so my weekend's cut short. But so I got it all back together. I ended up using my Harbor Freight pump again to pump fluid back into the transmission. It looked like I was maybe like 3 quarts or so low, which from my understanding isn't too bad. Now I didn't record my first startup, but when I first started up, it sounded like a, you know how like a car that's been sitting for a while, like all the oil drains out of the top of the engine when you first start it, like all the valves and rockers and stuff start ticking and kind of making weird noises. I kind of had that sort of sound behind the engine, which I kind of think it might have been like the torque converter. It's really hard to say. But so I left it running for maybe 10 minutes as I was pumping it full of fluid. My girlfriend did the same process that we did in my other videos, but she shifted it from like into second gear, waited like 10 seconds, went to 3, 4 and drive. While I pumped from below using the Harbor Freight pump. And I think it was something as simple as, like I said before, I needed that longer bolt on the stripped transmission connection. So if you look underneath here, there's one little dot that dripped onto the cardboard, but I think that was just from shit that was on the bottom of the engine. So I wiped off the whole engine and all that. I don't see anything leaking. Got the whole bumper, everything back into place. Still having fitment issues here and whatever. My headlights are all kind of tweaked a little bit, but car's still up on the stand, so I can kind of just inspect it, make sure nothing's dripping down. But that's it. So sorry guys, I originally started this video series out. I was gonna show you guys how to do a transmission cooler, but I found out that it was just gonna be way too much work for right now. The transmission cooler is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. The only other post that I saw was on an old forum post, and they said they had custom hydraulic hoses made up for their application. It was a stage 3 KO4 Tiptronic car. But yeah, that's it. We got some parts ordered for the rear spring issue, and I have a new replacement headlight ordered for where my connector is cracked for the halogen or whatever. I'm hoping I can fix that as well. I don't like having any sort of issues with electrical or open electrical or anything like that. Open in the elements, I should say. So that's it. Stay tuned for more.